Hello and a very warm welcome back to the Kellogg Garden channel. In today's episode, I'm going to be filling my raised bed right here, which is 2 feet by 5 feet, with some summer-loving veggies such as tomatoes, eggplants, marigolds, etc. And I wanted to take you along on the process that I follow. But before we get started, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss another great gardening video from Kellogg Garden again. So let's get started. So just to introduce myself, I'm Resh Gala, founder of 100 Tomatoes and an organic gardener from New Jersey, growing zone 60. Typically, most people tend to plant their tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, eggplants and peppers, or their summer-loving, heat-loving veggies on their last frost date. I'm here to tell you that if you plant your tomatoes and other summer crops 2 weeks perhaps after your last frost, then I think you're going to have more success. Here in New Jersey, I typically used to plant out my tomatoes on 15th of May or around Mother's Day, which is our last frost date. But last year and the year before that, I started staggering my planting dates, perhaps even to Memorial Day weekend, which is what I'm doing today. And I found that the plants are less prone to disease and they're more happy when the soil is warmer and the nighttime temperatures are consistently in the 50s and 60s. So today's episode, I'm going to take you through the process of how I'm going to plant this 2 feet by 5 feet raised bed. And I had some kale, lettuce and other plants growing here, but I'm a small space backyard gardener. So I've just cleared this out and I'm going to fill this up with some good quality compost and some other amendments, and I'm going to take you along through my process. So when I'm planting tomatoes, I learned the hard way actually that just having tomato cages alone is never enough. And tomatoes, especially the indeterminate varieties, tend to grow, I don't know, mine grew at least 8 to 10 feet tall last year. And then they tend to bow over and create a messy tomato jungle. And if you want to avoid that, and this is what I'm going to do this year, I'm going to use these wooden stakes inside over here, the raised beds, and tie up my plants as they grow up the wooden stake. And I'm going to use a tomato cage for additional support as well. So let me show you how I'm going to do this. So these stakes, I think you can get them in any big box store or even in your nursery. And I think they're about 7 or 8 feet tall. So I'm planning to have my tomato plants right here in the middle, maybe 2 of them, and interplant them with some eggplants and peppers. So let's take one, I would say right here. Well, gardening is a workout sometimes. All right, let's make sure this is straight. Okay, that looks pretty good and firm. And let's do the same with the other one, right about the same distance from the other raised bed, and make sure it's in the center as well. I think that's about straight-ish. Push this in a little bit more. That's good. Maybe make that straight. There we go. I guess aesthetically you always want to check to make sure they're straight, because you want your garden to look beautiful as well as practical. So now we have these stakes installed and you can see what it looks like. Now imagine your tomato growing up of this. It's going to be beautiful and practical. Now the first thing with tomatoes that you have to remember is that you have to dig a really deep trench and bury them as deep as you possibly can. At least bury 1/3 of the plant inside the planting hole. And the reason for that is because the stem of the tomato plant right here, you can see, has these hairy bits, and wherever the stem touches the soil, it sends out roots. Oftentimes you might have noticed in your mature tomato plants, there are a lot of these stubby, little prickly, stubby little things that grow along the stem, and that's because they actually want to send out roots right there. So now that I've planted a really deep hole, this plant, I'm going to look to bury it perhaps this deep, or about 1/3 deep. Now first thing I'm going to do, even though I added my raised bed mix and my raised bed or potting soil right here, I'm going to amend the soil with some extra all-purpose fertilizer and sprinkle it right here and scratch it in. Okay, so that goes in, so there's enough of nutrition to feed the plant. And the tomato that I'm going to be planting today is called the Paul Robeson, which is an heirloom tomato variety. Now this, as you can see, I've grown from seed. It is a little bit root bound, but no worries. As soon as it goes inside the soil, it's going to be plenty happy. Now after I've dug the hole and planted the all-purpose fertilizer in there, or scratch that in, I'm just going to take a little bit of this mycorrhizae fungi and sprinkle that gently at the root level, and that helps the plant create an association with the soil microbiology and actually helps it uptake nutrients later on. So it's a very healthy thing to add. And the thing that I'm going to do is snip off, let me just take off my gloves, I think my nails are sharper. So what I'm going to do is essentially snip off these bottom leaves and prune them off just like that. And you might think this is being brutal, but it's not. And now I'm going to plant the tomato plant super duper deep. So you see what I mean? How deep it's gone? And backfill with the soil. There we go. And one of the things to remember when you're planting tomatoes is create a little bit of a mound around the base so the water can slope off and gently collect at the base of the plant instead of just, trickling away to other areas of your raised bed. So here I am creating a mound. Now you see, one of the advantages of taking off the lower leaves is that the leaves are not touching the soil, and that calls for a healthy plant. Now don't forget to put your plant tag as well. Alright, so let's get this second tomato plant planted out as well. Dig a deep trench or dig a deep hole. Put in some tomato or all-purpose fertilizer in there, so you know your plant has some good nutrients to get it through. You can also put in earthworm castings or compost into your planting hole. Completely fine as well. And of course, don't forget to pinch off or prune the bottom leaves. Now these bottom leaves are yellowing, but I'm not too concerned as the top looks green and healthy and just fine. Please excuse the soil on my face. Let's take off these bottom leaves right here. And I think that should be plenty good. I might have to take that out as well, but let's see. Some mycorrhizae fungi at the root level. It actually helps the plant uptake nutrients really well. So it's a very healthy thing to do. Now make sure you adjust your plant so it's as close to the stem as possible. Yes, I like that a lot. Let's backfill and see if we need to take off more leaves. I generally don't like the leaves touching the soil. Not too much, at least. A little bit cannot be avoided. Now, if you want to be really good about gardening and want your plants to be as healthy as possible, I would highly recommend mulching with triple shredded straw, never hay. I'm going to take this off, because when you mulch, then it just prevents, especially during a heavy rain, it prevents water from backsplashing onto the leaves and prevents all those soil-borne diseases. So, second tomato plant done. So just to support my tomato plants a little bit more, because last year I had quite a bit of a jungle, my indeterminate varieties grew almost 8-10 feet tall, and they started drooping over, and it was just a complete mess. Not that I didn't have production, but it was just a bit of a jungle. So just to prevent that, this year I'm going to not only tie them and train them up this stake that I have here, but I'm going to add this 4-ring tomato cage for additional support. center this a little bit. Okay, I'm going to push this in to keep it as secure as possible, moving the leaves up, of course, and pushing that in again some more. And I think that's pretty good. Now you might be thinking, I already have 2 tomato plants. What else am I going to plant, or what do I have space for? Well, I'm going to plant 3 more eggplant plants. So one right here in this corner. I think that'll be just fine. And then obviously I have 3, but I'm going to take one of them and plant it probably right here in between. And then another one is going to go right there. So we have 2 tomatoes and an eggplant, and 2 more eggplants right in front. Now the variety of eggplant I have right here is the Antigua eggplant. So let's take this out and let's separate these gently. You don't want to tear the roots, be as gentle as possible. And let's take this one plant right here and pop that in right about there. Same thing, dig a hole, maybe not as deep, yeah, maybe less deep than that. And I'm going to put some garden food. Scratch that in. Going to pop out this lower leaf that looks like it's not so healthy. Plant that in. And eggplants don't need to be buried as deeply. Oh, look there, cherry seed from my compost. It's always good to see in the garden. This one's going to do just fine, and I'm going to put its tag as well. We have the Antigua eggplant. Now let's do this one here, which is actually a Thai long green eggplant. I've never grown this before, but if you're a market gardener, it might be interesting to grow this variety because it is quite sought after. Handful of fertilizer, scratch that in as always. And of course, you can always add your mycorrhizae fungi as well. Also known as rooting powder, and I'm just going to get one of these right here. And plant that in right there. And don't worry if sometimes your leaves are a little bit green. It's completely normal, because they are obviously quite stressed being in a small container if you're growing them from seed or if you get them from a nursery. But once they're planted in the soil, they just tend to take off. Now this one is my absolute favorite. It's called the Hansel eggplant, and it has long, purple, slender eggplants that don't have too many seeds. So it's a beautiful variety, especially if you don't like those mushy eggplants. Then you want to grow Hansel. It's also an All America Selections winner actually. So, oops, get this out first. That's rooting powder right here, and let's plant this baby in. Just tidy up. Don't forget the plant tag. And looks like I'm all set. So as you can see, the 2 tomatoes, 3 eggplants, and I'm going to tuck in some marigolds into the corner because they're a good companion plant. So So let me do that and I'll show you the result in the end. So now you can see this raised bed is all planted with 2 tomatoes, 3 eggplants and some marigolds tucked in into the corner. And don't forget to give it a nice deep water. And of course, when you're planting out your garden, make sure that you plant it either early in the morning or late in the evening, not in the afternoon, because it's sometimes too hot for the plants to handle. And when you're watering, water the soil and avoid watering the leaves. It's not necessary because it's the roots that actually uptake the water and not the leaves as much. If you have drip irrigation, then make sure that that's turned off, especially for the first 2 weeks. The seedlings, their roots are very small and they haven't gone down pretty deep. So water by hand, even if you have drip irrigation, and then switch to your drip irrigation line after about 2 weeks, once the roots have established themselves pretty well. So I'm going to continue watering my garden, and I hope you have a great day. And next time, let me know if you decide to plant your tomatoes a little late, or even if you decide to plant some tomatoes out or eggplants out right now in middle of June. Have a great day. See you soon.